It's September 13th, 2022. Um, I am watching the Eyewitness News at 7. Um, they are putting on something called a cyber incident. Now, um, I have, I guess you could say, survived several attempts at others harming me to the point of no longer being in existence. I never know when it's coming. I'm just like sitting in the blind. Um, there's, I've had several. Um, when I was in real estate, I had to have a computer. Only time I ever used a computer, other than when I was at the bank, but that was regulated by the Banking Commission and the corporations, and they had their own cybersecurity and their own logins and codes, and it was normally on a surveillance camera. Um, so this way it would never be or come under question. Um, so I had a computer once, and actually I've had a few of them. They disintegrate. Like they only work for so long with the Windows platform, and then something happens. I don't know how. I don't know what, but then it no longer works. Um, in when I was in Allstate, when I was in Exit Pro, Exit Realty Pro in Bayshore the last time, I had my laptop went down. I had to get a tower, which I did, and I logged in once, and then I went home, and I was so sick. I don't know what radio band it was. I don't know what hertz, what frequency, whatever, but it jumped from it just being a cyber attack to then several instances of me being in the house with only a television. I mean, there was a computer there, but I didn't access it. The children would, if their school required, they'd use it for school. Um, and that's like where Havana syndrome started. And it was in Suffolk County, which is an area of Long Island. The person from the Shire who gave me the award when I was only 18 years old at Hofstra, when I had somebody come visit me, um, that I thought, whatever. And then he left. He said he was coming back, and he never did. And then Jason happened. Um, that whole whatever, they came to Long Island, and while they were there, we're looking at a map because there's other areas in the world that apparently have names very similar. Um, and with this new internet thing, if one is broadcasting from one, I mean, I don't know. So I don't know what that was about, but that was just a moment in time where we met. It was an IAN, or at least that's the sound of the name given for that particular meeting. I was alone. Nicole wasn't allowed to come with me. Um, I don't really remember. I can't recall the entire meeting. That's not unusual. Um, but I think it was 2016 or 2017. And then they sent me, well, I went to the hospital for help. I asked for like an NSA agent. I asked for somebody like NASA level, CIA, something. I labeled that file chip in my head for Havana syndrome with very detailed notes on my end. And then what subsequently happened as a human in an area of Long Island that's not prepared for this level of biological warfare. I mean, there's no response team. There's nobody deployed if you ask for help. They want to pump you with drugs and they want to like tie you to a bed and they want to disparage your name. They want to take your children away. They want to try. And then, of course, I have a problem with what was around at that time from blacksmiths that I couldn't get rid of, which came off of the back of something Falco. I mean, I'm from Eagle's Nest in Long Island. There's a bald eagle somewhere that loves me and wants to see me okay. I don't understand where humanity gets off. I'm a celestial body and I hold the hands of time. There is significance and power within a certain church format of that appearance and that anatomical presentation. I am so unclear at a respectable big brother level why I'm being harmed just trying to survive and why there's been so many times that I've been harmed. Mysterious blood loss, mysterious onset of blood loss, and then inability to like recap, mysterious all of a sudden presentation of some kind of what I thought was an allergic reaction. Now it's looking a lot like whatever that monkeypox was while I slept in my bed. Same woman also had somebody creep into the house and gash me so badly they put gills. So I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, and I couldn't lay down. I mean, there's been a history in this area of me being harmed this horrifically, and there's no one to ask. There's no arm to hold. There's no hand to hold. I wouldn't know where to find one. I don't know how they organize themselves. And then in a next gen attack, while I have biological effects of the reduced blood capacity, I don't know if it's to try to weaken my heart, my kidneys, my ability to stay strong and agile. I really don't know what the modus operandi is of the like insidious. Really, I don't. It's not my field of study. I mean, if and when I get pulled through a hole in time and space to safety, oh, I can update my safety officer real quick in Special Task Force Mark. But then I don't want to go back. I never want to leave the safety of his person and enter humanity ever again. And for some reason, the last time I wasn't able to stay on the side of wherever he was for my own safety and well-being. I woke up back in Patchogue. And then the next set of attacks happened. And this last set of attacks happened in Suffolk County. Now, I don't know law. I don't know how to sue someone. I don't know what damages are. I don't know how to recoup damages. I've been severely wounded for so many years. It's hard to count. There's so many incidents. But how to ever get just enough money to have a house and keep my kids safe, I have no idea. I mean, like, again, that's the level that I'm being kept at, is just needing a house and a safe place for me and the kids. And I can't even find that. And then to find out they're admitting that it's 2022. I don't know. Is it because my 22 has, like, his father was 02, he's a 22, and now he's 22 years old, and now he's got shoes of his own, and he's got big shoes to fill to keep mom safe. I'm a little confused at where we're at, but here we are at coming out. There was a cyber incident that Suffolk County is laying claim for, but it's this, like, they say something, but it's not like the full story kind of a thing, like, I don't know, kind of, sort of, but not really type of thing. Um, so they're saying that there was some kind of incident. They said that Americans tend to get hit more than any other country in the world, by cyber incidents. I don't know what that means. Um, and again, when it jumps between an electronic device and then messes with the energy management of the anatomy and physiology, I don't know what classification of sci-fi that qualifies for. I don't know where to report it. I mean, none of this has been prepped. We haven't been prepped. I haven't been prepped. I haven't been kept safe and whatever. In, like, there are some, I'm sure, who keep neighborhood safety. Otherwise I really would be dead. But there have been times where I came pretty close to death, and most of the times I can't even remember just how close I came and who was responsible, because I wake up and then I can't remember. I can tell you I got a flat spot in the back of my head. My mom says I wasn't born that way, but no answers from them.
Well, Suffolk County government websites remain offline tonight after someone infiltrated the county's computer system. Officials shut down the websites and email out of an abundance of caution as they investigate the security breach, which was first detected within the police department last Thursday. They say no personal information of residents was exposed. They're also not calling it a cyber attack because they say the computer system wasn't disabled or taken over.
At this time, I can report that we have detected malware and that it has the hallmarks of ransomware.
Adds, however, that no money was demanded, but the breach is affecting residents trying to access certain services. State police are helping county police by providing internet access so they can run data. The cyber intrusion could take up to several weeks to fix.
Now, for me, oh, and so now there's an ethics complaint. He's suing her. And I have no idea how that even works or why they would even do that, but, like, whatever. So, my concern with this Suffolk County breach is I have seen here that there's some form of technical school where, not technology like wood crafting, but we're talking computer and cyber, where the armed forces teach technical skills to some kind of tradesman or technical aspect. Again, I wasn't allowed into their elite US club. I don't know why. I mean, I live here. I was born here. Why am I not allowed in? And then if they're going to further pursue these technical careers, and then there's the problem tactically of securing not only satellite airspace, but the utility so it doesn't arc and have some kind of electric management problem with the anatomy and physiology through, like, hertz and, like, cymatics and all sorts of stuff, with this coding of electric and recoding, and then there's technicians, and then there's telephone companies. I mean, there are so few technology, like utility workers left. Like in Tiafrio's day and age, a lot of them were, for lack of a better term, they used to call themselves guinea pigs, like, or guineas, somewhere between an Irish and an Italian. And they looked white. And they worked in these utility companies. They had great jobs, great pensions, great health care. They were able to have families. They were able to sustain Long Island. Some worked in the city. There's big NYPD and FDNY community. Used to be. For some reason, throughout my life, it has now and same thing with the U.S. Post Office. The mail. I can barely find anything guinea looking or guinea pig looking, since I qualify for Irish Italian on heritage of something. So now that gets confusing. There's also tonight something about everybody went out and bought guinea pigs at some point from pet stores, and then they gave them up to the shelters. And now there's so many in shelters for some reason. Again, more like the universe is sending me signs. I'm just not quite sure. But all these stories are patched together for some reason. I don't know. It's an eagle. Why is one a golden eagle? Why is one called a bald eagle? I'm not sure. I could fantasize about what that might mean, but I don't think I have to on camera. Now, I don't lay claim to Jewish religion. I was invited when I lived in the Eagle's Nest to other children's bar and bat mitzvahs. I, of course, respectfully went. Lou and Lynn at that point were able to afford dresses. It was the same time we all together went ballroom dancing. So I had new dresses at that point, and I went to their bar and bat mitzvahs, not knowing what it was, but going with an open mind just to learn about something outside of the fish hatchery and St. John's, where I went in Episcopalian. So there was that crossover event that I went through in respectable community. But there was no word of, I don't know what a yeshiva is, although it exists inside of the city of New York. And this story says private school regulation. And it looks to me, there's something in New York City that has a word that they use for their specific community called Hasidic. That's how they've pronounced it in my area. I don't know if it's Hasidic or Hasidic. That's just how they vocalize in a respectful manner. Not that there's long talks on it. However, they did mention it on the news. In the news, they're saying some of their private schools, but also some of the ones that accept state funds, are not being taught certain things, which I also had something go on in some of the, again, the sampled of the schools that I went through, since I went through a few of them. Almost like to witness to see what they were teaching me. If it was a full education, was I going to have a career after this? I don't know. And so some of the yeshivas had the same thing. I should know probably what the Gettysburg Address is, but I really don't. And I don't know, is this considered colonialism? Is this post-colonialism? Then there's this really scary acknowledgement tonight about all of these, like, what Queen Elizabeth was in charge of. And then the fact that they are interviewing they have it on the New York News, which there's a large multi-nation grouping in New York, which frightens me because they seem to travel back and forth to their home island territories and then back to New York like it's no big thing. But it seems to be deteriorating the safety and security of some of the rest of us, especially since I was not like, I'm more Waldorf in the sense of very limited access to TV. And like the movies that I was allowed to watch as a child were very hand selected by Linda and Lewis. Um, Same thing with the Disney princess movies. Not that I really remember them that well. I've only really seen them once each. Some I've watched a little bit more. But again, it just talks to a larger picture and looking um, like in the future, almost like to try to visualize where, what, who's steering, and what's going on in concerns. So this is what New York's saying to me.
State Board of Regents has approved tighter regulations tonight on private schools. 1,800 schools are now required to teach the same core subjects as public schools. The board took action after New York City's education department found 26 of 28 yeshivas didn't meet legal standards. And a New York Times investigation claims 50,000 children at Hasidic boys' schools are denied a decent education. Experts say students don't even know about the Constitution. Private schools must meet the new standards by December of 2023 or risk losing public funding.
A really down day on Wall Street.
Okay, so that's really frightening. And now if I think of the S and the C on an index, and then there's some flat ion that happened, I don't watch the market normally, but it hit such a frightening one day pattern of number that it seems incredibly significant in its once occurrence, because it's so in an outlier pattern from where the normal range of a one day flux is on this particular whatever exchange that the humans use. I don't have any whatevers that I'm able, like, that I have access to. I don't trade on the market. Now this is what they're saying. They're saying Commonwealth, voluntary association of 56 independent countries. Majority are former colonies of the British Empire. More stuff. They didn't teach this in public or private school that I went to. Private meaning Catholic. I went to a Catholic school, and what I thought was Catholic school in the city, but it did not present itself nearly as Catholic as St. Dominic's. St. Dominic's looked like it was Homeland, Emerald Society, and tough broads. Like, I was threatened in the hallway. I mean, everybody knew I was a Protestant and whatever on that. I didn't flaunt it. It's just the theology teacher knew, and then it went from there to I don't know. I never brought it up, and people knew. And then it became threats at school, and then I went back to Cold Spring Harbor, more towards the Eagle's Nest of protective custody, I suppose, until they attacked Lewis's business. And then we had to go back to my grandfather's house and to the fallout shelter in Bayside.
Most of which are former colonies of the British Empire, but the complicated legacy has prompted some countries to consider parting ways. Antigua and Barbuda plan to vote on the future of the king as head of state. And last year, Barbados removed the Queen as head of state, but remains a member of the Commonwealth.
We're going to bend and bow and kneel to them as if they are gods. Those days are done.
In March, Prince William and Kate were met with protests during their Caribbean tour, especially in Jamaica, where there are calls for slavery reparations.
My heritage is Jamaican. There's obviously questions there about whether or not we should move to the Republic. For myself, I think King Charles should be King of Jamaica. Controversial it may sound. Why is that? Continuity.
King Charles clearly has his work cut out for him, but with his desire to bring the Commonwealth into the future and his focus on the environment while also carrying out his mother's wishes, there is hope. By the way, Bill and Sade, I want you to take a look at these pictures from 1966 of a young Queen Elizabeth visiting British Guyana. My mother was a young schoolgirl, and she was there. She was able to meet the Queen and shake her hand. She said to me that she was beautiful and she was gracious, and she will never forget that moment. This really speaks to the deep connection that the Queen has with so many people. Reporting in London, I'm Shirlene Ellicott, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Bill and Sade, back to you.
All right, Shirlene, thank you. The others.
So now, frightening as it is, with this sense of what has taken over, it used to be Bell Atlantic, and it was monopoly controlled by what was here. I don't know when they started recruiting in and teaching only what wasn't part of the monopoly. But now that's one of my highest national security concerns, especially with being hit not only with somebody physically coming into the residence, but with high electric and magnet electric like interface with the biodome, for lack of a better word, in like a rudimentary way of explaining my own personal situation. I will say, as far as colony goes, when I studied at the community college, Nassau Community College, and there were people that I did not know who they were at the time. But again, we were in a laboratory together. And just like that biology class that I took at Nassau Community College, that had no lab, filled up like that. And then there was a sign-in sheet. There was some other, I don't know who they were, who followed me through this pattern. But really the medical microbiology class, that was on colonies. Because when you have an outbreak of epidemiological standards, like a virus, like a bacteria, I mean, they said that they were, the bacteria that we were using were almost like a benign bacteria, something that you'd find in the household environment. But to find out that they could be motile, or that they could travel, that if you have one sample in a slant, in an auger, to find out that they are anaerobic and then they're not, like that. And then that word colony is really frightening when then you pair it with public health and safety, and just how much traveling this airlines at commercial passenger for just the everyday traveler for leisure, it puts so many more people at risk. And now, since last generation to this generation, the armed forces in this US, I don't know what their hiring ratio is. I really don't see people that look like me. When I look, I don't know if they're National Guard. I don't know if they're, I have no idea, but they don't look familial. And I know that they do a lot of technical training. And there's been a lot of corporate buyouts and takeovers of shares of corporations and things that never should have been, because then they become some managing partner in some quiet takeover that then puts people like myself in jeopardy even further, and to the point where I keep getting abused by the system, and there's nobody at my level smart enough to even collect the report that I'm aware of. Nobody's presented themselves that they're at that level to even have this conversation to. So now that puts me even, that makes me even more compromised. And it's, I mean, like, it's just gotten worse. And it's this like long drawn out scenario, but it is at variant levels because of the exponential problems that are compounding in their interest in the subject and in their handling of strategic management and strategic partners for I don't know what purpose. But it seems like they're growing in power. And it seems that it's really frightening even to try to get an education in New York at this point for my son. I have no idea what he's going to be able to do if somebody from the great beyond doesn't call for him for some form of family help into a respectable academy of some sort. I have no idea how my children will survive. I don't. I mean, the schools are not preparing them. I mean, I had the excuse I was a woman and I was going to marry well. That was my plan. I was in the eagle's nest. I knew that I was going to be important. I had a special baby that I would bring forth. Other people knew about it. But even that didn't happen correctly. So now it puts me in a really dangerous situation as these things are changing around me, management, leadership, and all sorts of things. And then that puts my offspring in a altered state that puts them in jeopardy at NSA level. Just so IHS and IHOP are on the same level of when I walk in to Zion, it has IHS in letters, or Roman numeral 1, the high bridge, and then the S at Imperial whatever service, and the high order service. And then there's a crown next to it. And in the background, there's a child that looks, if you blend European and the North American monetary systems, it looks like my what like a family tree member um, that they're being recognized in that particular church. Um, so this thing about Suffolk County coming out saying that there's no malware and there's some form of malware as their acknowledgement. One second, but without ransom, I don't know what happened in the grand scheme of things. I know somebody does. I don't know how to report in. I don't have like a direct contact. I I don't know how else to document like what's physically happened to me. And but they did deploy me a person that is not in my family tree. Um that I refer to as Felix the cat in my phone because he took a train out from this. He met me in the building that they moved me from Stony Brook. They moved me to Amityville and they had me in lockdown. And then not handcuff lockdown, but just in whatever was going on at that point on Long Island. And then they kept me in the building for like on a involuntary hold for a few days with whatever's going on outside. And then in that building, there was a tall, younger gentleman by the name of James, and then there was a guy named Felix, but then they moved him. And then he followed up with me afterwards. I picked him up at a train station and drove him to Port Jeff to meet his doctor. But the name I was given by that person was Felix, and that was it. So I picked him up at the train station in Ronkonkoma, and I drove him to Port Jeff so he could have this special doctor's appointment for whatever his thing was, but also to have a contact in whatever. So that happened. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.